Hello and welcome to another episode of TechSavvy. This is a program hosted by the PSCB. It's a tech destination program. We meet with the tech leaders from all over the world, especially the Pakistani diaspora in the US and other parts of the world. So I'm very um, happy to welcome people from Seattle who are visiting, members of Open, Overseas Pakistanis Entrepreneurial Network, meeting with some of the government officials here from Ministry of IT and PSCB. My name is Kamal Chima. I was in Cisco for 14 years, left that, came back to Pakistan last year to start a social enterprise here. But then subsequently, I also am on the founding team of a Silicon Valley based startup called Graphient, where we raised about 30 plus million from Sequoia in our Series A. So really happy to welcome you guys here. Let's have a round of introductions.
This is Syed Junaid Imam. I'm member IT in Ministry of IT and I look after digital transformation in the federal government.
I'm Azam Chaudhary. I'm based out of Silicon Valley. I work for Google Cloud and I also run an organization called Open, the Organization of Pakistani Entrepreneurs.
My name is Burkan Saeed. I was recently the chairman of Pakistan Software House Association, and I also run a company by the name of Vistec Solutions.
My name is Usman Nasser. I am the Managing Director for Pakistan Software Export Board.
My name is Fahim Ul-Haq. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Educative. We train engineers and help them upskill themselves. Before founding this company, I was a senior engineer at Microsoft and Facebook.
Welcome everyone. We have some really brainy people here, so I feel a bit no pressure. I'll start with Junaid Sahab. I'll start with you. The company the social enterprise that I run is an IT-based social enterprise. So it combines IT with social impact. And so I would like to ask you: is that an area where we have some policies in Pakistan? Is that a regulated area? Is that an area that's even in consideration? Like, is the government even looking at it?
Okay, so I think that's a key focus area of the government. Last year, Prime Minister of Pakistan gave a Digital Pakistan vision, and the sole purpose of that Digital Pakistan vision is economic prosperity. That also combined with citizen empowerment. So the vision of the Prime Minister is directly for the social skilling of the society. So this citizen empowerment, how do we achieve it with digital transformation, is that the fundamental problem in Pakistan is that we as a citizen do not have access to the right information. We do not have access to the rights that we have, and we do not have access to the right decision makers. So through digital transformation, we want to bridge all this gap. And once the citizen is included in the decision making, in the policy making, so the policies will be made for the betterment of the citizen. And on the economic prosperity side, we all discussed this today, that our bulk of our population is youth. So the IQ of our nation is among the good ones in globally. So we want to transform to a knowledge economy, where we want to move up the value chain, and we want to use our human capital to get the best out of the whole society. So that's the overall vision of the government. So it's very much on the agenda, and we are making a Digital Pakistan policy 2021, and that is focused specifically on this subject.
Right. That is very heartening to hear. Moving on to you, Mozam. What do you see from your perspective? And I know you've been meeting a lot of people today. You've had meetings with PSCB, in the Ministry of IT. What do you think are the opportunities for the Pakistani diaspora to bring some of the investment into Pakistan? And then following on from that, what are the blockers as well? So if you can go into a bit of depth in that.
So first of all, we had great meetings all day today. And one of the things that Pakistani diaspora is seeing, there's so much optimism with so much funding that is coming into Pakistan. There are a lot of Pakistanis coming back to Pakistan and starting their ventures. There's also this fear of missing out within the diaspora out there. So there's a lot of optimism, and a lot of people want to be part of this goodness that they're seeing in the ecosystem. What we are seeing in terms of some blockers, there are issues, and I think in particular the diaspora that brings up often around taxation. There's also if they have a company registered here, how does the equity get distributed with foreign individuals? There's also banking issues. There are quite a few issues, but the good part is, especially coming out of the meetings today, what we realized is there are a few initiatives that are carried out by the President's Office, where the PSEB and Minister of IT are part of that. And all the challenges and blockers are brought up in those meetings, and they're addressed within a month. At least their needle moves forward, and the speed at which things are improving are just amazing, and that gives us hope that things are moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Muazzam. Thank you very much on that. Moving on to Barkan Asaf from Pasha. Today we talked about a lot about, he mentioned there's a lot of opportunities, Pakistanis coming back. There's lots of, and we'll move on to the blockers when I come to you, but from an opportunities perspective, I know I've been speaking to lots of people in your team, and there's a lot that Pasha is doing as well to help create that ecosystem and to help connect people, and working closely with the government and bridging that gap between industry and the government as well. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, exactly how Pakistani diaspora and even the local diaspora can leverage Pasha?
So again, I think one of the things that Mozam has also mentioned is that things are happening at a lightning pace, because there is a realization in the government that this is the industry that can solve a lot of Pakistan problems. We have always pitched IT industry as solving two problems of Pakistan. One is bringing valuable foreign exchange into the country, and the second is employing our youth. So these are the two things that we have pitched on, and I think the government has bought them, and I think there's a lot of activity that is happening. So for example, when we used to pitch Pakistan before, we did not even had an idea that what are, for example, if you want to set up a company here, what are the regulations that you have to go through. So now anyone from overseas Pakistani can come. They can go to a special technology zone, they can form a company, they will get a list of benefits that, okay, these are the 10-20 benefits that you get. And that the Pasha pitched it for a reason, because we knew that when you market Pakistan, you need to have some benefits that are comparative from a region point of view. So thankfully we have that now, but that's not it. We have solved dozens of regulatory issues in SECP, State Bank, and FBR as well. So name the area that you have. We can count, I think, dozens of interventions that have been done on that side. So definitely overseas Pakistanis can connect with Pasha to help us understand what are the issues that they are facing. And if there is any issue, again, this group came, we connected them to the Ministry of IT. The Ministry of IT is basically our own team. We work like a team together to solve these issues. Whatever is in the capacity of Ministry of IT to get done, we get it done, alhamdulillah. So, and again, now there are a lot of other things that are happening from the branding of Pakistan perspective. We are doing soon, inshallah, Usman will talk about it, that we are doing a country report on Pakistan from one of the top 4 leading companies of Pakistan to brand Pakistan into a tech destination. Again, this video series is also part of doing that and branding Pakistan as a tech destination. So a lot of things are happening, and I believe that Pakistan is, the last thing I would like to say is that Pakistan is at a point that we are doing $3.2 billion. So what's happening is most of our industry is small industry. Most of our companies are less than $1 million revenue. And once you cross a certain amount of revenue, like $10 million, then you become a small economy in yourself. There is a reason why once you reach that critical mass, that critical number, then you go from going from 3 to 10 is easier, and then going from 10 to 30 is much easier. So I believe that exponential growth is going to happen. Definitely there are blockers. One of the blockers that I think that I consider the topmost priority, I think, is the human resource. So no matter if FBR is teasing me or these guys are teasing me, if I can't hire resource in Pakistan, if I can't hire tomorrow, I come and say I want 1,000 engineers, I can't do it. I mean, who cares about FBR or who cares about anything else? So I think that is the number one challenge that we as a nation need to work together. And if we are able to work on it, inshallah, I believe that $10-20 billion export figure won't be a problem. But this is a problem that we need to solve. Thank you.
So Usman Saab, I'll come back to you, but on the point that you mentioned about the supply problem, I'd like to move to you, Fahim Saab, because this is a thing that was discussed over and over again today, the skill shortage in Pakistan. Some of it I have faced as well when I was hiring developers especially. You are now running a company, you have founded a company that develops those advanced skills for people who are already software engineers and keeps them abreast. What do you see the gap in Pakistan, and where do you see yourself playing in to fill that gap?
So first of all, I agree that we have a talent gap here. We also hire a lot of engineers in Pakistan, and we are seeing the same issue and the same problem that everyone else is experiencing. If you want great senior engineering talent, that talent is non-existent right now, just because there's a lot of competition. And obviously more and more funding is coming in every month, which is great. But if we don't have the talent to build products, by you leveraging the capital that is coming into it, then that capital will be of no use. I think the country has to leapfrog in creating more engineers faster than a 4-year degree program. 4-year degree programs that are run in a university are too slow for the pace that we need now. And also, 4-year degree programs are structured in a way where they're trying to address multiple problems. They're trying to create great engineers, but they're also trying to create great theoretical computer science people who can go on and do masters and PhDs. And so I believe that there is a middle ground somewhere where you can create a lot of engineers by helping them leverage tools like Educative in a 6 to 9 month program. The other issue that's also important is that a lot of engineers, when they graduate, they don't really have the skills that they need to be productive on day one. So as the government and the private sector has to work together to bridge that gap. A graduate who cannot find a job in the first 2 or 3 months is of no use to anyone. So why don't we leverage this time? Or we even go back and work with universities where they can start building those industry readiness skills while they're in their last semester or last quarter. Would be a great way to quickly ramp up our engineering supply.
Thank you very much, Fahim Saab. Moving on to you, Usman Saab. So today we heard a lot about some of the great things that PSCB has done in terms of removing the blockers that we face when we come back to Pakistan. I can vouch for that because in the past year I have been a beneficiary of some of those great things that you're doing, from tax perspective to other regulations that have helped me establish my company here. And then we talked about some of the blockers as well, the path that you're there, but there's still some things missing. So can you elaborate on that? What have you been doing for the past year, and where do you see yourself going in the next year?
Thank you. So when we started last year, we had a very quick realization that the problem is in supply. People thought, Pakistan has a demand problem. Yes, we do have a slight demand problem. Perception is one, but that comes later. The first thing that we need to solve is the supply side of the entire issue. So we created a complete policy, and we thought, no matter who would come into PSCB or ministry, if we have an IT export strategy, they can follow that strategy going forward. And that strategy was very much focused on the supply side right now. Somebody 5 years later, 6 years later down the road would come in and say, we want to revisit that strategy because we now have an oversupply. Great problem to have. But right now we have this issue. So on the supply side, we started working on how we, number one, as Fahim said, how we quickly get more engineers into the field. Number two, whoever is in the field, how can we upskill them, get them billable? Number three, what should we do with the universities to ensure that the students that they are producing as a product, they are billable resource on day one. So, and the other thing that we also looked at is the issues with the teachers. And in computing science, the issue with the teacher is something we often neglect, but this is the main problem. A typical teacher, let's say somebody who's done his master's degree in 2008, and let's say he's done his master's or she's done her master's in database sciences. Now they've been teaching ever since in the university. Now from 2008, they've never worked in the industry, they've never gone back, they have no clue that databases have now moved on to cloud. So if we ask them, and if we tell them now the database storage is on-prem, but the schema is on the cloud, and you have to shard the data to be able to do multi-cloud, they probably think this is all alien language to them. But this is the problem that their students are facing when they go in the field. So the other issue that we're focusing on is the upskilling of those very teachers. So the programs that we are working on with the industry, and what we want is industry professionals to go and actually go and teach these students and the teachers. So we inbuilt the entire program in such a way that whole process is also enriching the teacher as well. So we are trying to solve that issue. Right now we've gone in for roughly 10,000 of additional resources this year. We are working with HEC on introducing a 2-year degree. So that 2-year is a Lego block sort of a degree, like stackable. So that's a 4-year degree to start with, but you can go in and do the 2 years with the all technology courses up front. You get those done, you go out in the market, you start working. 5 years later down the road, you feel that you want to complete your 4-year degree, you go back and you do the other fluff. Once that's done, you have a 4-year degree, you move on, do your master's.
Fluff is a good one.
There's no better way of. We all regret learning that fluff, don't we? Say it. So that's one thing. Then the other problem was the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is we have very little infrastructure, very little reliable infrastructure beyond Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad. Karachi, Lahore, and Islamabad, great 3 big cities, but they host 17% of the population. We are working, so how do we get the other 83% on board to start dealing with that issue? And this is where we are building a lot of software technology parks. We're dotting the country with software technology park. Wherever there's an IT university, may it be Sakkar, may it be Sangar, may it be Loralai or Gezer or Khuzdar or Gilgit, we are setting up a software technology park. The idea is that those students don't have to migrate to large cities, because IT is something that you can do it from anywhere. An IT business, you can literally, I can tell you the 37 IT companies in Skardu, which otherwise reaching Skardu is impossible. Other than a plane, you take 17 hours to do that. But anybody sitting in Skardu with a reliable internet connection is as good as somebody sitting in Barkan's office in Islamabad. So that's what we are trying to do, and by doing that, what we are hoping that in those small cities there will be a pocket of people who will be bringing in dollars into that city. Let's say Daska, we create 500 people who bring in $1,000 a month, right? All of a sudden, we have started in Daska, we have started an economy of $500,000 every month. That will change Daska forever. So that we are also working on, and then other issues with we are working on the tax issues with the provincial tax boards, with the federal tax board. We've solved a lot of issues. We are solving a lot of issues. There are some niggling problems that we are working with, and they are really cooperative on some elements. State Bank is another area that we are working on. Facilitating the freelancers is another area that we are working on. And then on the last area on the supply side, last domain on the supply side is the access to capital, where we are trying to get banks to give collateral-free loans. We are trying to bring IT companies onto Pakistan Stock Exchange, where they can raise capital from that market as well, and that will open up their financial history to the finance industry. and then they can go and they can compare. They can say Fahim's is a great company. This is their ratios. So let's see Fahim's ratio and put it as a litmus test on Usman's company, which is not a public listed company, and let's see how the two companies are doing. So we can decide either should we give bridging finance to Usman or not. Should we loan X amount to Usman or not? So these are the things that we are doing on a supply side. I'll talk about the demand side later, but I think on the supply side, this is what our policy direction is, this is what our strategy is, and this is how we have now transformed entire Pakistan Software Export Board onto this mirror image of our strategy into an organization. So this organization will be fulfilling that particular strategy.
Thank you, Usman Saab, so much for that very in-depth process of how PSCB is addressing the supply issues. I think we have to move on to a break now, so let's go for a quick break and then come back in a while. Welcome back. Moving on to Muazzam. So my question to you is, Usman Saab talked about the supply chain issues and how PSCB is addressing that. How can the Pakistani diaspora contribute into that, and how can the Pakistani diaspora help with that? Is it mentorships? Is it something else? What's your take on that?
Thank you for asking that question. I think what Usman talked about was how is he going to tap into the local market to mentor, to coach, and to train the local the engineers. There's a huge market abroad. There are a lot of folks, diaspora, including us. The reason why we are here, we want to give back. And we are finding out channels how to do that. And there are thousands of us out there who want to do that. And there are some platforms like Open is one platform. There are many other platforms that we need to effectively leverage. So net, we need to have a programmatic approach, have an organized platform like Open, tap into the people who want to give back, get commitments from them. How do they want to give back? It could be once a month meeting, 1 to 10 mentorship sessions, coaching in the context of even probably an internship. So all these ideas are great, but it has to be a programmatic approach, all chapters together and all diaspora collaborate on it and have a bigger impact.
So institutionalize this relationship between PSCB, Pasha, Ministry of IT, Open, and some other Pakistani diaspora.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Fahim Saab, there's a lot of companies in Pakistan wanting to sell in the US. What is your advice to them? How can the Pakistani, the local entrepreneurs here, tap into the US market?
There are 2 or 3 things. The first one is to build the product mindset. The product is not just a set of features. It has the right finesse, the right UX, the right UI, that's intuitive, that's great for users. So we have to build that mindset that allows you to build products that can sell in the Western markets. The second thing is security. It's very important. The third thing is compliance and privacy. So going a little bit into security, if you own customer data or you have access to customer data, then the most important thing for you is to make sure that you have the processes in place that can ensure that the data cannot be breached from outside, and potentially you're going to host the data in a data center in US or somewhere where the customers feel safe. Secondly, your internal processes should be very strict, that no employee has access to customer data without the right authority and the right privilege and the right audit. And the last thing that I would say where organizations like PSCB can help as well is looking into compliance. For example, when we sell our products to B2B customers, one of the easiest compliance to get is SOC 2, which still takes 6 to 12 months to acquire, but SOC 2 at least ensures that you have a process where everything is logged, everything is audited, And without those kind of guarantees, it will be very difficult for someone to buy, especially for an organization to buy a product from Pakistan, because let's face it, there's there's a trust issue here, and we have to build a reputation that
True.
we can build products for customers and we can have the right compliance, security, and privacy.
Excellent. That's great advice. Okay, so my last question is to you, Junaid Saab. Today we were in the meeting with Ministry of IT. We met lots of other government officials, and there was a change. I mean, there was a lot of will, there was a lot of passion, there's a lot of energy that is kind of, I haven't at least seen it before when meeting with government officials. But there's also this fear in the back of my mind, I'm sure in the back of some of the other folks visiting from the US as well. Will this go away as the government goes away? I mean, is it short-lived? Is it just the will of this government? How are we going to ensure continuity, and how are we going to remove that risk associated with the passing of this government and going on to the new one?
Okay, so I think one of the key reasons that you see is that now the government has introduced new structures into it, so that the professionals and experts from the private sector can come in to the government for performing specific functions. Osman is from the private sector. He worked all along his life in the private sector. I, before joining the ministry, has worked in the private sector in Pakistan, in Europe. And I personally think this has brought a good mix of the bureaucracy and the technocrats. And once you come from the private sector into the government, you bring in that zeal and that thrive to do something. So once we professionals come into the government, we know this may not be a very long-term career, but once we have to go back to the industry, we have to take something. So there is an added pressure on us that we have to perform. Besides the responsibility that we have of our job, we have additional pressure that we have to perform. We have to do something, and most of us come to the government for some satisfying objectives as well. So I think this is one of the key reasons that we have on key positions some experts from the industry. So that's the key, and I think the continuity will remain because the government has established certain policies, like for inducting the professionals from the private sector. So we had one MP scale policy in the past, and they have probably a year or so back introduced a special pay scale as well, which is quite equivalent to what you get in the market. So now the economic benefit is also there, and anyone who wants to perform at a national level, he has that opportunity that he or she does not have to compromise on his financial gains, and you get the financial benefits, and you still have to can perform at the national level. So I think that's the right mix, and the change that you are witnessing, I think it's because of this mix.
Thank you very much. So that was the end of our episode. Thank you so much. It's so heartening to see this kind of a zeal from the government sector, this kind of people coming from abroad with their heart in the right place, really wanting to give back, and this is the kind of will that I think I'm at least witnessing for the first time. So very heartening to see that. Amazing incentives here for the overseas Pakistanis to come and invest in Pakistan as well. I think what I was hearing today in our meetings today, the incentives here are unmatched. You don't find those kind of incentives in some of the other technology parks out there. At least they're matched or better. So thank you so much. You guys have done great work. This was our episode 5, signing off now.